loop.
Oh, well, good to see you. Our final Holy Week conversation, except we get to do our Good Friday. I get to join you guys in your Good Friday service tonight, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. When I was at Threads on Sunday, there were quite a few people who were like, "I'll see you Friday."
Oh, good,
So I'm
good.
excited to. And
Yeah.
your musician Hank is gonna play also.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
so glad to hear that.
yeah,
Yay.
it'll be fun. Little collaborative thing.
Nice. Well, Anna and I were just talking about the fact that the passages, all the passages in the lectionary for today are really long. And the gospel, which is the gospel passage we've been focusing on, is super long. It's like 2 whole chapters. It's John 18. Well, I'll try to ignore my dog. I'm sorry. Rosie.
Here.
John 18, 1 through 19:42. And so we thought that today, instead of reading the passage, which we do hope you'll do at some point through the day, because it is really a great way to enter into the meaning of Good Friday, to just dwell with this passage. But that we would just kind of hit some of the high points to summarize what's going on here, and then we'll chat about it. And this would be a briefer reflection than what we've done the rest of the week, since we do have our Good Friday service tonight. So I don't know, Anna, do you want to start with the summarizing, or how should we do that?
Yeah, so it's two full chapters, all of 18, all of 19. Yes. And 18 starts with the betrayal and arrest of Jesus by Judas out in the garden. And it goes all the way through that whole night and through the next day until Jesus' burial. And so it includes Jesus going before the high priest and also going before Pilate, because they were kind of going back and forth. Basically, is this a legal matter or is it a religious matter? Like, who's the boss here? And it includes Peter denying Jesus 3 times. It includes him being sentenced to death and whipped and then brought in front of the crowd where they all were yelling for him to be crucified. Um, when he is crucified, there's the whole section where he carries his cross and he goes to the hill. They wrote the sign that said, "Here's Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." The soldiers cast lots for his clothes, and then it goes all the way until his death. When the soldiers came around, they would break the legs of someone who was being crucified if they hadn't died yet, because it would speed up their death. And since Jesus was already dead, they didn't need to do that. And they buried him, and it describes who was at the cross and all, like, it's just full all these little moments. So when you were reading through it, what were some, like, what's the first moment that stuck out to you?
Oh, let's see here. I think about, the one of the guards, or it's interesting that in the lectionary, I'm not sure what translation they're using, but it says one of the police standing by
Yeah.
in 1822 struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" When Jesus simply says, he really just answers the high priest's question, right? But with the confidence and boldness that he had. And I also was struck by the fact that Pilate put the sign on the cross saying, King of the Jews, in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, So really wanting everyone to see. So really, in a way, Jesus was being shamed by his own people and by the Roman authorities. And yet the Roman authorities were shaming the Jewish people as a whole, in a way, like mocking them in the mockery of Jesus, which was part of the whole complexity of what was going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So that was striking. And I was also struck by just all the mockery around him being called a king, like putting a purple robe on him and putting the crown of thorns on him, and taking his tunic, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like something that I hadn't really paid attention to before, or just in the recent history, is when um 18 18:6, 18:5, 18:6, Jesus says, "Who are you looking for?" They say, "Jesus of Nazareth," and he replied, "I am he," is what the New Revised Standard Version says.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus said, "I am he." When he said that, they stepped back and fell to the ground.
Yeah.
And so I looked at my little footnote because I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
wonder. And, he's saying, "I am."
Right. Yes, it's in the Greek. It's ego eimi.
Okay. And is
Yeah,
this
I
the
am.
same exact
Mm-hmm.
"I am" as what? I mean, I know that God said it in Hebrew,
Mm-hmm.
but is it the same? Would that have been the phrase that they used?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at that point, then a lot of the people were reading the Bible in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, and would have been translated. That is exactly how it would have read, that God
Yeah.
is I am. And
Yeah. It
uh,
just, it hit me like, because when it says they stepped back and fell to the ground, I was like, seems like a reaction. And then I realized, like, oh, I bet that's
mhm,
I am.
mhm,
And it just, not that Jesus was ever one to shy away from speaking the truth or anything like that, but he often did speak in riddles and
mhm,
didn't give people a very clear answer a lot of the time when they
mhm,
wanted one.
mhm,
And so for him to be aware of the things that he's being accused of and aware of the
mhm,
ways that people are thinking about him, to kind of like stare it boldly in the face and be like, all right, let's just go. Like, I feel like he's going like full throttle.
mhm,
Let's make no mistake about who I am saying that
mhm,
I am.
mhm,
You know? And
mhm.
this Bible, Rod gave me this, and it's like a C.S. Lewis Bible. And so it has a lot of passages like next to Bible verses, or next to, like at the bottom of the page, it'll have a chunk of like some piece of C.S. Lewis writing that, like,
Hmm.
oh, maybe he referenced this, or maybe he's talking about the same thing. It's not like his Bible study, it's just
Sure. Yeah. It's
mixed
just
in.
drawn from his writings.
But one of the things I think about, which I don't think it says it right here. I didn't read his writings in this, but there are people who have had an opinion that Jesus is like a really good guy, and he was like definitely an activist, and he did a lot of good, but he's not God or
Right.
associated with God.
Mhm,
And I remember that C.S. Lewis says that Jesus never claimed to be a good, like, he claimed to be God's son.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so if you can't have a reality where Jesus is just a good guy who's not God's son, because since Jesus claimed this and he claimed "I am,"
mhm,
then he's either a liar or a lunatic. That's what,
mhm.
C.S.
Right.
Lewis
Yeah.
says.
Didn't
And
he
so,
didn't he draw a parallel of, like, if I went around saying that I was a like a teacup.
yes, probably. That sounds like something he would say.
Right? Like, you'd either have to believe that I really am, or you'd have to say
Yep.
he's lying or he's delusional, he's crazy,
Yes.
and so Jesus doesn't really leave us that option.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
Hmm.
One of the things that was really striking to me, and I know tonight we're going to talk more about the women
Yeah.
who were there, but I just, this isn't my own original thought. It was listening to a couple of theologians I really appreciate kind of discussing this passage or discussing the meaning of the cross together. And they were talking about how in this passage, when Jesus in chapter 19, 26 and 27, where Jesus' mother was standing near the cross.
Yeah.
And when he saw his mother and the disciple that he loved, which we assume is John, standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." And then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. And I've always thought about those couple of verses in more practical terms, just a lot of the questions that arise, like, well, why did she, did Jesus not have siblings who could take her in, or had Joseph died, or had she lived with Jesus, or like, why did she need to be taken in by that disciple? And I've always gotten caught up in some of those more pragmatic questions, but the conversation that I was listening to raised for me a lovely thought, which is that a new family was established at the cross where I become my sibling's keeper. All the way back to the first murder, when Cain murdered Abel, and then when God said, "What have you done?" And Cain says, like, "I don't know," or "Where's your brother?" "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And that Jesus established new family at the cross where we all become each other's keeper.
Yeah.
And that is part of the profound change in reality that happened at the cross. That the cross, one of the things Jesus took down into death with him is the divisions that separate us at every level, right down to the level of family relation, so that we don't get to use that as an example for not caring for others.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. That's such a
Mhm.
beautiful way to think about it. And it reminds me too of like kind of the opposite way when Jesus was teaching one of the times and he was in a crowded space. Maybe it was when the people were about to lower their friend down or some, I don't know. He was in a crowded space and there was like a part where his mother and siblings were trying to get to him. And he
Mhm.
was like, "Who is my mother?"
Yes, right.
Anyone who, and in that sense, it felt like um, you can interpret it as like rude, like a rejection.
Mhm.
But he
Mhm.
says there like, "Who are my siblings? Who is my?" But the one
Mhm.
who does the will of the Father. So it
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
he from the beginning, yeah, he didn't uphold like blood relation as the
Mhm.
number one relation.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and I haven't thought about that with this with the cross.
Mhm.
I really love
Yeah.
the other
Well,
thing that's interesting about that part is like his mother and his mother's sister, so his aunt and Mary Magdalene
mhm.
are all there. And
Mhm.
like I just think I don't know if that's the only time that Mary, the wife of Clopas, is.
Yeah. I'm
And
not
why
sure.
are
It
they
might
both
be.
Mary
Mhm.
called Mary?
Yeah, so many people named Mary.
Yeah, and like if they're sisters, does that mean sister-in-law? Or like did someone have two daughters name them
Right.
both Mary? Or like
Right. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, interesting.
no, just interesting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm.
Hmm. Well, would you mind if I read a poem on Good Friday by Malcolm Guite? This book I love. It's poems for every day of of Lent and then Holy Week. So it's a collection of a bunch of different poems, some of his own poems. And so Malcolm Guite is he's an Anglican chaplain and poet in Oxford, England. But this is his poem titled Jesus Dies on the Cross. He writes, "The dark nails pierce him and the sky turns black. We watch him as he labors to draw breath. He takes our breath away to give it back, return it to its birth through his slow death. We hear him struggle, breathing through the pain, who once breathed out his spirit on the deep, who formed us when he mixed the dust with rain and drew us into consciousness from sleep. His spirit and his life he breathes in all, mantles his world in his one atmosphere. And now he comes to breathe beneath the pall of our pollutions, draw our injured air to cleanse it and renew. His final breath breathes and bears us through the gates of death."
Wow.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. So,
Beautiful.
gosh, we could just talk for an hour about this. And I'm so glad that we have our gathering tonight, because there's the cross is just so rich, and Jesus suffering there and the fulfillment of so many things. And it's definitely worthy of much longer contemplation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to spending some extra time with it tonight, and yeah, singing together and worship.
Yes. Yes. Well, we made it through without my dogs continuing to make a giant ruckus. So, hooray.
Mine is sleeping.
I was a little worried at the beginning. They really started in, but.
All right.
Well, thank you for chatting, and we will see you all tonight, hopefully at 6.
Yes.
Be good.
Alliance. We'll be there.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. See you
Well,
then.
take care.